So let's start with a rule that is called MVC, Model View Controller. So the Model View Controller says that you must have 3 sheets at least in your Excel dashboard. The first one contains a raw data. The second one contains the formulas or your workings, the numbers you want to extract from the data with the help of Excel functions. So in this particular video tutorial, we will be using very less formulas, and our aim is to use either no formula and maximize the features and create a dashboard. So we have a separate sheet of data, then we have a separate sheet for the formulas and the numbers to get from the data, and the last one more sheet for the dashboard where all the visuals will combine together, and we will be applying some designing rules. So the MVC stands for that at least a user should have 3 sheets. Don't put all the stuff in one sheet like data, formulas, and dashboard in entire one sheet. This will create a mess for you. The another rule is called the CRAP rule, which is an acronym: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So there are some techniques in order to uh, divert the attention of the audience towards the dashboard so they can focus on main part of the dashboard first and other in the remaining time. So we have some techniques to do it, and these are related to the scrap rule. So we will learn that how to use scrap rule in dashboards. So C stands for contrast. Now, for example, in this particular here in example, there are 4 boxes which are of same colors. So as an audience perspective, anyone can see any box at any time. But what if we want to make sure that all the audience or the people who are watching that dashboard can focus on one part, and how we can divert their attention? So there are some techniques: changing the color, either create a border to that shape or object, change the shape, change the size, orientation, or the distance of the objects. So these are some of the techniques in which you can make an object a bit different so that it should be focused first when a user see a dashboard. So contrast Y is related to a changing in color, thickness, shape, size, position, and distance. In the CRAP rule, R stands for repetition. So here you can see a dashboard which is created in Power BI. So it's related to training, feedback, analytics. And you can see a repetition of colors, repetition of fonts, repetition of ideas or visuals. So repetition is also important because if you don't repeat the ideas, visuals, colors, or the fonts, it will be very fancy and it will be of no more use, and the audience or the user will not be more focused on the dashboard. So it's very important to repeat some of the objects like color, visual elements, fonts, and ideas. In the CRAP rule, the third alphabet is A, which is the alignment. So it's very necessary to align all the objects properly, horizontal, vertically, so that our attention should not divert on the distance of between the objects, but moreover, we should focus on the relevant object and put them in a sequence that the most important one should be on top, and the approach of top to bottom, you should add visuals or the charts according to the requirement and the priority in the dashboard. So alignment is very necessary. The last one is the proximity, which says that the items close together are likely to be perceived as a part of same group. There should be a relationship, there should be a meaning with the visuals. So without visuals, or a visual which is creating too much noise, should be eliminated. So when you apply the contrast, repetition, alignment to all together, and you form a dashboard for a specific purpose, for example, in this slide, you can see a sales performance dashboard. All the visuals are related to each other and they are creating a proximity, a meaning to it. So this means that you have created a right dashboard. So proximity is related to the ideas, messages, and data. All right, so now we will be creating a dashboard within Microsoft Excel, and we have a data set. So let's first explore the data set, understand it, and then afterwards we will try to create a dashboard with some steps, and they are very easy. Any intermediate user or a basic user can do it. So we have a data which have certain columns. There are almost 24 columns in the data set, starting from the order ID, order date, customer ID, customer name, related cities, their abbreviations, country, salesperson names, region, ship date, month, quarter, and then accordingly some more columns like payment type, how the customers are paying to you, either from check, credit card, or cash. The main products, their categories, main categories, and definitely some numbers columns like unit price, quantity, revenue, and shipping fee. So these are some of the columns in a data set, and we need to start analyzing from a different perspectives as required by the management to improve the sales. So the target is to improve the sales, to analyze sales by region wise or by a certain different time period, so that we can take decisions for the next year. So let's proceed towards the dashboard. The first step for a user is to create a design on a paper, and after the approval of that sketch, you need to design that exact interface in Microsoft Excel, right? And this particular Excel file is also following the MVC rule, which is the model view controller. As you can see that the database is in a separate sheet, workings is in a separate sheet, and the dashboard will be in a different sheet. So there are three sheets at least in a dashboard file, right? So you can link things together, because in the database, if the time period contains weekly, so this data will get appended, or a monthly basis. So we don't need to put the calculations and the dashboard visuals on the same sheet, because it will disturb the dashboard and our other calculations as well. So there are always three sheets in your dashboard. I have just added a shape, and I have made it a color of blue. We will carry the blue theme color, and this is a general text box at the right side, and I have written for the year 2019. So in our database we have only 1 year, just 2019. The title, which is on top left side, is called Sales Analysis Dashboard. uh, Bottom two more shapes, one is with a dark blue color and one with a gray, and we have written quick summary, so we can put some key figure numbers here. But before that, we will create some visuals, situation by situation, and we will put it on our dashboard. So let's get started. So I will go to my database, and I will select my database, and I will quickly insert a blank pivot table. So now let's get started. The first one is related to the sales trend. We want to show a sales trend time wise, month wise. So I will rename this spreadsheet as sales trend. And I will put region in the filters, and then order dates in rows. As you can say that it's automatically is grouped into months, and the revenue into the values, right? You can ungroup as well, and you can check that this is the order date column. And again, you can just right click and go to the group, and you can group it to the month wise or year wise as you like. You can just format the numbers by going to the home tab and using the number group, and we will just select this pivot table and click on insert and create a line chart, right? So after creating a line chart, all those objects which are necessary, all the um, elements, chart elements which are necessary, we will keep them, and unnecessary elements will be deleted. So we don't need these buttons, so I will just right click on it, and from this contextual menu we will click on hide all buttons on chart. We don't need a legend, so we will delete that. So the title, we will rename the title as sales trend month wise. Okay, we need to put the data labels, so I will just right click on the line and I will click on add data labels, and we need to have all these data labels on the above side. Okay, we don't want these grid lines, so I will just click on it and press the delete key. We don't want this vertical axis because already we have the data label, so we can focus more. So I will just click on vertical axis, y-axis, and I will press the delete key. Right? And I can just resize by its pointers. And what more I can do is I can also shorten the numbers as well if I want to. So let's learn that how to short the numbers, because these are full figure numbers. So I will just right click on this sum of revenue column in the pivot, and I will click on value field settings, click on number format. It will open a dialog window for format cells, and here in the custom we will set a format. So these are the amount in dollars, so I will add a symbol of dollar here first, and then hashtag, and then comma separator. And also these will be the numbers in thousands, so I will add an alphabet which is called K. Okay, and O, and I will press the OK. So now you can see that we have shortened the numbers, and it looks and gives us more readable view now. So I will just copy this visual, or you can just cut this visual as you like. So I will just copy this visual, and I will go to my dashboard sheet, and I will press Ctrl V to paste this. And I can put anywhere as I like or as I want to adjust. But for the meantime, I am just putting on in the center of this particular dashboard sheet, right? Okay, so now I will make a copy of this particular sheet, which is called sales trend, by just holding the control key and left mouse key, holding together and then dragging and drop. And now the second sheet will be deal count by revenue. So we will create a new visual and a new pivot table. So we will modify it. So I don't need this chart, and I will enable the field list, right? Now in this particular pivot table, we will add filters in the region. So now in this particular pivot table, we have region in the filters. That's correct. Now we don't need the order dates. Instead, we need revenue to be in the rows, and we will make a grouping of this particular column. So I will just right click on it, and I will go to group, and I will say starting from 0 until 4,000, and OK. And instead of sum, we will have a counting. So we will know that how many transactions has been done in this particular slab. So as you know that we have applied the custom formatting in the previous pivot, so we need to just remove that. It's simple. Right click, go to value field settings, number format, and keep it general. Instead of custom, keep it general, and press OK. And we need to make it as a count. So we can say that there are 88 transactions has been done within thousands to 2000 range of revenues. And now we will create a visual. We will select this data and go to insert and creating a column chart. So we'll do again some customizations. So we don't need legend, we don't need all these numbers, all these buttons, grid lines. We will rename this particular chart as deal count by revenue, and we will just also increase the width of these columns. So that's very simple. Right click, format data series, and decrease the percentage of gap width. Okay, and now you can just resize this chart. Press Ctrl C. So press Control C and then go to the dashboard sheet and press Control V, and then you can place it for as your own choice as you would like to. Okay, so I hope this concept has been clear to you. Now I will put this particular trend chart as well. Right, we can just make these visual resets because as we know that we need to print that visual later on as well, so we need to think about printing aspect as well. Now the third one, so again I will just hold the control key and press the left key, and I will just drag and drop to make it a duplicate sheet. Why we are making duplicate sheet? Why we are not going to database every time and creating a new pivot? So remember that that's very important and a key point of this entire dashboard, that you know that as an Excel user, when you create a pivot table, it has a memory cache. And what we are doing is that we need to link all the objects with a certain slicers. So if the memory will be same of the pivot tables, it will be help us to join all the pivots at the end with a slicer. If we create a new pivot every time from a database, the memory cache will not be same, and we will not be able to connect all the visuals which will be available in dashboard with our slicer. So that's very important. That's why we are just creating a duplicate sheet every time and giving a different aspect of analysis. As we know that because the memory cache will be same, so it will help us to connect the visuals with the slicers, and it will be dynamic and interactive. Okay, so that's the reason, and it's important to understand. So number three, the different aspect is now this time we will make sales by region. Okay, and that's very simple. We will put region in the rows this time, and instead of count we will make it as a sum. And now you can see that we have got our visual as a column chart, and we will rename that sales by region, the title of this particular chart. And we don't want this vertical axis, we need to add data labels, so just right click and click on add data labels, right? And you can just format these numbers as well of it. Once you are ready with the visual, just press Ctrl C and go to your dashboard sheet, and press the Ctrl V button in order to just paste that visual, and now you can just put it on your dashboard. So now you can observe that it takes a time to just align the objects properly because we have studied the graph rule, and according to it we need to correctly align the objects, right? Now one more thing that let's add the slicers in this particular dashboard as well. So let me just move these visuals so that there should be space of for the slicers. So you can select any pivot table because at the end we will connect those slicers with every pivot. So you can make slicers from any pivot table. So I will go to Analyze tab and I will click on Slicer, and I will add a slicer for month, quarter, and region, right? And I will just press Control X to cut these slicers, and I will move them into my dashboard worksheet. Control V, and instead of vertical list we will make some customizations. So I will go to the slicer, and here in the columns instead of 1 I will write 4, and I will just resize my slicer. I don't want this title of region because it's understood that east, north, south, west pertains and represent the region. So I just need to go to slicer settings, and I will just uncheck this display header so that it should have more space in my slicer as well. and I will put it on top here, right? Okay, now we need to customize the month and quarter as well in a similar way. So for the quarters, I will again go to slicer and I will put 4 in the columns field, and I don't want the header to be display, and I will just make it resize and I will put it on my dashboard top side. All right, so now we have that as well. Similarly, for the months, there are 12 months, so I will go to again slicer tab, and in the columns field, I will just write 12 so that this vertical list should be converted into horizontal, and I will just resize this visual. We don't want the header, so going to the slicer setting and uncheck the display header. And then we will move that slicer on top of our dashboard from here. All right, now you can change the color as well. So I will put the dark blue color for this my month slicer, a different color for my quarter slicers, right? And now your definitely time will be consuming in resizing of these objects definitely. And after some time you will be successfully uh, adjusted all these slicers height and width, right? Okay, now let's say if I click on any of the region here, for example east, so you can see that only one uh, visual is being changing, right? And if I click on any of the month, only this particular visual is changing because we have not connected the slicer with every pivot table. Now for doing that, it's very easy. What we can do is I will just right click on the slicer, and from this contextual menu I will click on report connections, and you can see that these slicers have been made from a specific pivot table of sales by region. But definitely if I want to create an interactivity between all the other objects as well, because the memory cache is same of all the pivots, so I will just check mark on the other pivots in this list and I will press OK. Similarly for the second slicer, right click report connections and make sure that you have check mark all the pivots available in this workbook in different sheets. Right click report connections and do a check mark. Now next time when you click on any of the region, you can see that all your three visuals are changing, and you can select any of the specific months you want to see on your dashboard. So for selecting all, what you can do is click on the first month and then hold the shift key and press the last month of your slicer. It will work as an all position, right? So I hope you understand this logic. Now we will create three more sheets with three more different visuals, and also we will connect them with the slicers, and at the end this would be overall an interactive dashboard based on a slicers and charts and pivot tables. And in the quick summary area, we will put some key figure numbers from the data. Okay, so let's make the remaining part of this dashboard. All right, so let's create another visual. So I will simply make a copy of this existing sheet and I will rename this as payment type. And in this particular pivot table, we will be dragging the region in the filters and then payment types in the rows and sum of revenue, right? So we can see that cash remaining part of this dashboard. Alright, so let's create another visual. So I will simply make a copy of this existing sheet and I will rename this as payment type. And in this particular pivot table, we will be dragging the region in the filters and then payment types in the rows and sum of revenue. Right, so we can see that cash, check, and credit card accordingly, and we will rename this header or title of a chart as payment type. And this visual is still not correct, and we will make a different visual this time. So I will just right click on this visual and I will click on change chart type, and this time I will select donut chart for that, right? And I need to give a color which should be blue. You can select the colors and I can just make sure that my data labels are visible. So I will make it white color, right? And I also want a legend. So I will check mark on legend and I want them at the bottom of this visual. So once my visual is ready, I will just copy this visual and now I will go to dashboard and I will just press Ctrl V to paste it, right? And I will put it on my dashboard with a proper following all the proper rules. We'll just make it a resize. Right now, next, again, I will just copy this one more sheet. And what we can do, remember that we are uh, recording this and learning this basically video with an approach of using very less formulas or either no formulas to create a dashboard in Excel in very less time. Okay, so if you go for formula approach, definitely you can do a lot of things, but there are definitely you need to spend a lot of hours for that as well, and you need to be very strong in the formulas approach. So there are some of the recommended functions to use in dashboards, like people use indirect, offset, index match, VLOOKUP, sum ifs, count ifs to get the numbers from the data and to make it dynamic and interactive when they put on their dashboards. So in this video tutorial, we are trying our level best to make sure that we can use built-in features in order to build a dashboard in very less time and to present in front of the management, right? So in the second last sheet, we will make another visual which will says sales by representatives. Okay, and this time we will make some changes definitely in our pivot table. So that will be, again, region will be in the all, and representatives instead of payment type, we need that salesperson to be here in rows, and definitely the amounts, and this time the visual will be as a column chart. So I will just change the chart type is into a column chart, right? And I don't want legend for this, and also the vertical axis I will just turn on the data labels, and we will format that data labels as black color here, right? And we will rename the title as sales by representatives. All right, we don't need some grid lines here, we'll just delete them. So Control C, and then again we will go to our dashboard sheet and we'll press the Control V. So you can press Control X to cut that visual as well as you like, as I told you earlier. Right, so now this visual is being properly placed on our dashboard. Now the last visual, and then we will be going for very few formulas to get the key numbers from the data set. Now again I will just copy the sheet, and this time we will be extracting top 5 customers from our data set. And for doing that, what we need to do is, again, I will just click on show field list, and from here, instead of salesperson, we need to have customer names, and we will open the raw labels, and from here we will go to value filters. You will see a top 10 in the sub menu, and here we just need top 5, so I will write 5 here based on sum of revenue, and I will press OK, and this time I will change the visual type as a bar chart, and I need to also sort this visual as well. So I will go to, again, this raw labels, expanding the options. From this menu I will click on more sort options, and I will select ascending for sum of revenue. Right, so we got this visual ready, and we just want to make sure that the width of these visuals should be increased. So format data series and increase the cap width. So once we are done with the visual, and we also need to rename the title as well, this represent to the top 5 customers, right? So control C, and then we will go to the dashboard sheet, and we will click, or we will press control V, and we will adjust this visual on our dashboard. Right, now what is the step remaining is that we need to have some key numbers from the data where we will be using some functions, but before that we need to also link all these below 3 objects with the slicers. For doing that, I will right click on the slicer, and I will go to report connections, and I will check that if all the pivot tables are connected. Yes. From the second slicer, right click, report connections. So all check marks are being done on all the pivots. And again, for the region slicer, report connections, yes. Now you can see that if I click on any of the slicer here, let's suppose if I select only East region, so all these 6 visuals will get changed. See that? East, North, South, West, North and South, right? And if I select any of some of the few months within these regions, so I can have very quickly I can just analyze my data from 6 different aspects. So this is how I hope you like this techniques to create a dashboard in very less time by just uh, having the applying the features and utilizing the built-in features of Microsoft Excel, and they are very awesome if you are using some of the latest versions like Excel 2016 or 2019, right? Even for the 2013 as well. But if you're using 2007, you will not find slicer in that version, right? Okay, so now the last part of for this dashboard, and then it will be completed, and it will be ready to present in front of your senior management, right? So far we have completed more than 80% of our dashboard with no formulas, and for just for a few key numbers we will be writing some functions here. So let me quickly just make the name ranges for each of the column. So I will select my entire data. I will go to formulas, and I will click on create from selection, and make sure that you have a check mark on top row. So within a second, Excel, this feature has created a name range for each of the column from your data set, as you can see here, right? And we can utilize these name ranges in our functions. So I will move towards my working sheet, where we will be uh, extracting some of the highlighted key numbers. For example, total revenue. What is the total revenue so far? For the total revenue, definitely I will use sum of revenue column, and that's it, right? Then highest revenue for of regions. So we have four regions like east, west, north, and south. So I will be using some ifs. In the first function argument, we will have a revenue column, and then in the criteria range one will be the region column. Then in that particular region column, you are looking for the east, and I will just copy and paste. And here I will use the max function, mix and match function. So the highest revenue of region is for the north, which has been extracted from the index and match, and the max from these four particular regions definitely have different figures, but the highest one is for the north, right? So there could be many different strategies when it comes to the formulas and functions, that how you drive the number from a data set, right? So I'm using some of the basic strategies so that everyone can understand. Then we need to have highest representative revenue. So definitely we need names of all the representatives, and then we will find the same approach. The total number of transactions. So line the count A on the column which is called order ID, and it says 369. Highest city revenue. So we need to have a list of cities, and then we will be using the max function to get that revenue of highest city and their respective name from index and match. So So once we got all the key numbers from our data set by applying some Excel functions, now we will put them in a very correct formatting in our dashboard. So what I can do is here I will go to insert and I will click on shapes and I will insert a text box. And once you added the text box, just go to the formula bar, add an equal sign, and link this text box with a certain other cell in a worksheet. So from here, total revenue. So whatever will be changed in the workings, particular this C4 cell definitely will be automatically changed in this text box. So that's why we have linked this from the working sheet instead of writing manual, right? So total revenue, we will make it a format so that it should look neat and nice. And we will just turn off the shape fill, no outline, and make it a bit bold. We will press Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Again, from the second text box, we will link this text box with a total revenue number, right? And you need to just format all these numbers in a proper format so that it should reflect correctly text box, right? And let's make it a big in size. All right, so total revenue. So similarly, we will add all the text boxes of all these key important numbers, and after that, our dashboard will be completed. So now we got all our key numbers like total revenue, highest revenue by region, highest revenue of a representative, total number of transactions, and the highest revenue by city. It could be definitely more key figures or the key numbers you would be interested